Hey guys, welcome back. I'm so happy you're here. My name's Brittany, and make sure to hit that subscribe button for me. Today, we're going to be talking about Strigois. Think I'm pronouncing that right. So, Strigoi come from Roman mythology, and they're otherwise known as like an immortal vampire who have the ability to shapeshift into animals, become invisible, have superhuman speed or strength, be able to astral project, and they have a taste for blood, or simply draining the life out of another being through drinking their blood. However, Roman mythology isn't actually where this creature started. This creature dates all the way back to the Dacian period and Dacian mythology. And according to the Dacians, Strigoi were evil spirits. They were spirits of the dead whose actions while they were alive made them turn into this creature because they were unworthy of entering the kingdom of Zalmoxis. Legends of the Strigoi were passed by oral tradition. So essentially, people sitting around a campfire telling these stories about these creatures. And eventually, they would become part of Roman mythology, and the Romans turned them into these, not just these evil beings, but these bloodthirsty creatures. Some accounts say that they don't only drink blood from their victims, but they also feast on the flesh of humans. Some accounts depict Strigois and vampires as the same thing, while others say that they kind of vary, that they're not actually the same being, just more in the same kind of realm. Both Strigois and vampires have the ability to shapeshift, but when you talk about vampires, you typically hear them shapeshifting into a bat. It's said that the way you know that a family member had become a Strigoi or an individual has become a Strigoi to check their corpse to see if rigor mortis has set in. And if rigor mortis had set in, a Strigoi wouldn't be able to move. If the corpse is freshly preserved or has swelled and turned black before being buried, has a small hole in the headstone so the creature can get in and out of the grave. If they're lying in their coffin, face down with blood near them, or if you never see them eat garlic, are all different ways to be able to tell if a person is in fact a Strigoi. There's different ways that someone can become a Strigoi, some of which someone is a living Strigoi and not an undead one. So those ways are be the seventh child of the same sex in a family. For instance, the seventh son or the seventh daughter. Be redheaded, die without being married, die by execution for perjury, die by suicide, or die from a witch's curse. Also believed that children that were born with cowl, which is also known as like fat atop of their head, they will become a Strigoi when they die. The only known ways to prevent or protect yourself from these creatures to exhume them and remove their head and cut it in two. But how would you prevent a loved one from becoming one? It was believed that if the deceased had red hair, then they would come back as a Strigoi in the form of a dog, a frog, a flea, or a bed bug. And they would enter your home and feast on beautiful young women through their blood. So if the deceased had red hair, they would nail the coffin shut very heavily and drive a stake through the chest of the corpse. Another method to prevent becoming the creature was to dig up the body and behead it, and then place it back in the ground with their head face down. And as far as vampires go, it's believed that the meat of a pig that was killed on St. Ignatius Day was a way to guard against them. So, living Strigoi are believed to have two souls or two hearts, and they send the other soul out at night to be with other Strigoi and feast on humans' blood. Male Strigoi actually have the capability of having children with humans, which are called the hamper, meaning half vampire and half human. While living female Strigoi often want to live a normal life. They will get married, but it always ends up bad. They will sexually exhaust their partners and often in the end up killing them. Dead Strigoi will often rise from the grave and return to their family, acting as if nothing had happened. And they will just weaken their family until their family dies. Now, these Strigoi have no soul. Praying, placing thorns across thresholds, painting crosses on doors, and a lot of garlic are all ways to kind of protect yourself from Strigoi or vampires. It's said that on St. Andrew's Day on November 30th, which is the beginning of winter in Romania, Strigois will actually compete to see who can make humans the most miserable and make as many humans as possible the most miserable. Now, the first ever vampire is thought to be Gergrando, who died in 1656. So legend says that he would rise from his grave to torment a nearby village. One day, Father Gregorio, the village priest, banished him, but it didn't work. Gergrando would appear to his wife from her bedroom window. She said that he would look like he was smiling and gasping for breath. And then he would go on and assault her. When Father Gregorio became face to face with the Strigoi, he held a cross out and said, "Hold Jesus Christ, you vampire, stop tormenting us." And since that didn't work, some villagers who were led by Milo Raditic chased and tried to kill the vampire by piercing his heart with a hawthorn stick, but it didn't even penetrate his skin. It literally just bounced off his chest. Imagine the horror that they felt when they saw that this thing wouldn't even touch him. So the following night, 9 people went to the graveyard. They were carrying a cross, a bunch of lamps, and a hawthorn stick. Why they thought this would work again, I have no idea. If it didn't work the first time, why would it work the second time? Dug up Gergrando's grave and found his perfectly preserved corpse lying there with just a smile on his face. So they once again tried to pierce his heart, but the stick again wouldn't penetrate his skin. Who saw that coming? They decided to say some exorcism prayers, and Stepanasik took a saw and sawed off his head. Saw tore through the skin, and the vampire screamed. Gergrando was decapitated. Peace returned in 1672, so they finally killed the vampire. Now, a Serbian peasant by the name of Peter Slogojewicz was also believed to be a Strigoi. After he died in 1725, he came back to his house and he terrorized his son. He demanded that his son gave him food. And when his son was like, "No, I'm not giving you food, like you are supposed to be dead," he brutally murdered his son. In 1909, in a village in the Carpathian Mountains, children began to die. Villagers believed that it was a vampire, and they suspected that it was Count that had recently died that had become one. Now, they thought that this Count was living in his old house. So, in order to stop the deaths, they decided to burn the castle. In another account in 1969, the city of Capitanani, there was a death of an old man who, after he died, his family members started to mysteriously die as well. So they dug up his corpse and they found no signs of decomposition. The eyes were wide open and his face was red and twisted in the coffin. So they burned his corpse in hopes to save his soul. In 1970, in Bucharest, horrible crimes started happening. It was always at midnight and always during rainstorms. Victims were normally waitresses who would get off work late. And it wasn't until a year later in 1971 that Ion Romaru was arrested and identified by his teeth marks that he left on the women's bodies. During the trial, he was continuously drowsy, and he was only interrogated at night because he kept falling asleep during the day. He was never lucid during the day. He was sentenced to death, but when he received his sentence, he became very violently agitated. Now, after the execution, his father died in a suspicious accident. During the investigation, it was discovered that the father's fingerprints matched those of a serial killer who was active during 1944, whose crimes were incredibly similar to that of his son. The weather conditions were the same, and even some of the women's names were the same, which is incredibly eerie. It was rumored that the accident was actually arranged by the Secretariat, who wanted to eliminate such a dangerous person. So is it possible that this was actually a family of Strigoi or vampires? Or are they just awful human beings that, you know, they have the same trait of being a serial killer? Son wanting to follow in his father's footsteps, essentially. There's no other way that, like, the teeth marks would match the son if the dad did it, like if the dad was still, you know, an active serial killer. But now, in the village of Maritino de Sus in 2003, there's a 76-year-old Romanian man named Petre Toma who died. And in February of the following year, his niece had said that she was visited by her deceased uncle, George Marinescu, who was the brother-in-law, became the leader of a vampire hunting group that was made up of several of the family members. So they went, they had some drinks, and then they decided to dig up Petre Toma's coffin. They made an incision in his chest and tore his heart out. Then they burned his body and mixed the ashes. Get this, they mixed the ashes in water, and the family drank it. Yeah, they drank the ashes. But believe it or not, this was actually customary. The practice had been banned, and 6 family members were arrested by the police of Craiova from Dolge County for disturbing the peace of the dead. And they were imprisoned, along with being sentenced to pay damages to the family members that, you know, didn't partake in all of this. Since this occurred, the village of Aramasti de Sus drive a fire-hardened stake through the heart or the belly of the deceased before burying them, just as a preventative measure. So what do you guys think about all of the accounts that I just shared with you? And have you ever came in contact with a Strigoi or a vampire? Do you believe that they are the same thing, or do you believe that they're actually entirely different creatures, just kind of in the same realm? Like, you know, they're both these evil creatures who like to feast on blood, essentially. I want to know all of your guys' thoughts down below. Also, I would like to share that I am going to be doing a Halloween giveaway. I have done this every year since I started my channel, and once again, I'm going to be doing another one. If you win the giveaway, you will receive a t-shirt as well as a few other items. So all you have to do to enter is like this video, make sure you are subscribed to my channel, and comment down below what you're going to be for Halloween, if anything, and you're entered. It's nice, simple, easy. And until next time, I love you guys. Bye.